Or that my microphone. Yes. Guess what? We are live. Yay.
Woohoo!
All right. Guess what, my friends? It is time for another episode of the Entrepreneurial You podcast. To those of you who are joining me live, welcome, welcome back, and welcome if this is your first time. And if this is your first time joining the podcast, a special welcome to you. And of course, you know, my regular listeners, you have my love, you have my heart, love and appreciate you so much. Now, last week, I had a conversation with Luke Andrews. Luke is a real estate entrepreneur. He sells, he leases, and he invests. He's also a best selling author who has purchased 40 rental properties, yes, before turning 40. And so he has a passion to change lives through real estate. Now, this week we are going in another direction, and I'm excited to talk with a beauty expert who uses her platform to advocate for body positivity, clean beauty, and sustainability. Of course, you know the ropes if you're not new here, that I first have to thank my sponsor, the Jamaica Stock Exchange, and they continue to support the show over the years from the very get-go. So really, really, I love and appreciate them. So let's take a break and hear a word from our sponsor. After that, you know, I'll come in with my guest and get the conversation started. Welcome back. My guest on episode 310 of the Entrepreneurial You is Salome Sallelhy. You know what? Let me not butcher this. I should have asked her before. So I'm going to ask Salome to just pronounce her surname for me. My
No, I
bad.
thought I think you did great, actually. You were very close. It's Salehi. Yes.
Salehi. Okay. Ah, love that. So my guest on episode 310 of the Entrepreneurial You is Salehi. Oh my gosh. I just
Mhm.
love a unique name, and that is so unique. Salome is a beauty expert who uses her platform, as I said before, to advocate for body positivity, clean beauty, and sustainability. She is the founder of the Natural Beauty Summit, an important platform for conversations with clean beauty leaders about non toxic living. Welcome, welcome, Salome.
Thank you so much for having me. And yes, I founded the Natural Beauty Summit, which was actually a huge passion project because of everything I learned from having launched Sugar Wax. So I'm also the founder of Sugar Wax, which is a natural biodegradable hair removal system and body care line. So I'm so excited to be here to chat with you, Hanukkah.
Awesome, Salome. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to get into the clean beauty and the non-toxic living and all of that initially, and then we're going to move into some tangible ways to help entrepreneurs who want to develop a new product or may be in the process of developing a new product. But let's baptize you into the first question, the admission for this program. And it is, what do you know about the Jamaican culture?
Oh my gosh. I have spent a little bit of time, maybe only a couple of weeks in Jamaica. I have friends who are Jamaican. And I have a family member that actually spent a more extended period of time in Jamaica doing some scientific research, some biological research there. So I would say I would never presume to know a lot about any culture that I am not exposed to or practicing every day. But what I do love about my time in Jamaica and the Jamaican culture is the embracing of slow living and intentionality and just like good vibes, positivity, and chill. I think when I think of the Jamaican culture, that's what it conjures up for me is take it easy and make good progress, but we all need a lot more easy in our life and a lot more of that like calm approach to things here in the US. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean, it's especially in, I mean, California, where you're from, it's not as fast paced as when you go, and it is still fast paced, but it's not as fast paced as perhaps Miami. Oh my gosh.
Oh my
When I'm in
goodness.
that Miami airport, I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, can I even keep up?
Yes, it's very fast paced. And I have to say this just because I also grew up in Toronto,
Hmm.
Toronto, Canada, which actually has a very large Jamaican culture. I grew up eating beef patties and they are
Oh.
my favorite. Even like when my brother or if I have family coming out to visit me from Toronto, I'm like, bring me a box of beef patties,
Are you
please.
serious?
Yes,
Oh my
absolutely.
gosh. Love it for you. Love it for you. Okay. All right. So before we move on, I see one of my Facebook there, obviously viewing from the group, the Entrepreneurial You group. But of course, if you don't give Facebook permission to view to show your name, I won't know who it is that is relating to me, and I'd love to know who it is. So you can just put your name there as well, or just go into the settings and give Facebook permission to show your name. All right, let's get right into it. So we talked about earlier we talked about, body positivity, clean beauty, and sustainability. So first of all, you founded this lovely company, Sugar Wax. Let's start from the beginning. Why that name, and what is it all about? Yes, Alisa, good morning, and thanks for joining.
Well, I'm Middle Eastern. I have Middle Eastern roots, which means I have a lot of hair that I have to manage on a regular basis. I also have very sensitive skin, which makes most conventional methods of hair removal difficult for me. So, I think I kind of went through my whole life hating every time I was doing anything hair removal. And I was just like, it's just hair. There's got to be a better way. Um, I didn't invent sugaring. It's been around for theoretically, some say thousands of years,
Hmm.
from the time of Cleopatra. Um, all I did was take that concept after having experienced it myself for the first time in Australia and then learning more about it when I was on a trip in France. All I did was say, okay, this is a great system because it had such good results for me. How do we make this so that anybody can use it and do it themselves? So, really, my job or my mission from the get go was to create a product that anyone can use. So you have like no fuss hair removal. You don't need strips, you don't need spatulas, you don't need a warmer. You dip your hand in, scoop out the sugar, and apply it. Um, so that's kind of what I wanted to do for hair removal is like make it easy. And then to answer your question about where did the name come from? Um, so after my first sugaring experience, it was so different than threading or waxing or any of the things that I'd done before. So when I came out and of my appointment and I'm like glowing and I just feel so good and I can't stop touching my face because it's so soft. And it reminded me of the song Sugar Sugar. So I was like,
Okay.
yes. So I was like, "Oh my gosh, yes, that is the vibe. That is the
Yeah.
vibe." It's like I've never had that experience when I come out of a hair removal experience session, whether I'm doing it myself or someone else is doing it for me, that I feel so good that I just wanna sing. So I was
Hmm.
like, "Sugar, sugar," and then that became Sugar, Sugar Wax.
Okay. To be honest with you, let me just put it out there. I don't know the song, but just the thought of it, you singing and it coming from that song, it's interesting. So good to
It's
know.
It's an
And
old song. It's
yeah.
like, I think it was from the '50s, the Archies, was the band, but it was just like a total '50s, like, dancey, poppy song.
Hmm.
Just feel good
Ah.
song.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. I mean that's a nice way to come up with a name. Now, of course, many thankfully, well, I'm not sure if it's thankfully, but my listeners are predominantly from the US and secondly, Jamaica. But I know in the Jamaican culture, women, we don't have a big thing, a big culture of waxing. So it may be new, like, what is she talking about, right? But let's get into the whole body positivity aspect of things, because for a lot of women, hair removal is a great concern, and so it can, and I know it will affect, confidence issues, confidence and stuff. So let's talk about the body positivity and why you felt led to be in on that movement, as it were.
Honestly, what you said, I think, is what was the starting point, because I think, like, I obviously also grew up with hair battling the fuzz, and it did create some insecurities along the way, and I didn't want that. I think, like, everything that we do for beauty, for our own beauty purposes, um, needs to feel good. Like, that's why we're doing it, right? And I found that when I looked at, like, the market and what is happening, whether it's Instagram culture or, advertisement of a lot, like, honestly, majority of beauty companies, it's very shame driven and insecurity driven. It's like, oh, you'll be better when you have this, or you'll
Mhm.
feel better if you buy this. And that's, I think, very counterproductive to the whole beauty industry, because every beauty tool for me is a tool. It's a piece of empowerment. It allows me to, morph and change and be whatever I feel like being, not because someone is shaming me into being something that I'm not, but because I want to experience myself in a certain way.
Mhm.
So body positivity, I didn't want to post ads that are like perfect people with no hair and, pretending that they're, like the shaving commercials. I wanted it to be realistic and inclusive, because we all have hair. Hair is universal. We all
Mhm.
have it. Most of us don't like it. Some of us like it. And I think all the power to the people that like it. So when I came out with Sugar Sugar, I wanted to ensure that my message is clear, that
Yes.
this is a tool to empower you to define beauty on your terms, and we're not going to define it for you.
Absolutely. And another aspect of it I love is the non-toxic aspect, because we find that a lot of the products on the market, the beauty products on the market, they come, you know, beauty costs. In other words, you're paying with the environment, and we know what's happening with global warming right now, and the ozone layers being depleted and all of that because of our irresponsible behavior. So why did you decide that, what, I'm not going to contribute to that? It may be less costly, but I am not going to contribute to that. I'm going to make a difference. What was the thought process for you?
I don't think I'm alone in this, but I definitely grew up in a time where environmental consciousness has always been at the forefront. So for me, like, environmentalism and being conscious, making conscious consumer or business decisions has always been
Mhm.
a part of my life. But what really, really struck a chord with me is I happened to discover sugaring while I was traveling. And I
Mhm.
was traveling with my kids, and I had these experiences with them where we're on this beautiful beach, and then there's like a bag of garbage washes up, and I'm like, ugh, that's so gross. Or like we're hiking through a gorgeous jungle in the like thick of nature, and there's like empty Coke cans and like plastic bottles along the trail. And having to explain that to my kids,
Mhm.
along the way, they're small and they're like, well, why is this here? I really recognize that, like, anything that I do, I'm as responsible for the impact that we have on our environment as every other human. And as a business, when I'm putting products in the hands of other people, I it's up to me to decide what materials, what packaging, how we're shipping, production, all of those facets of it. Am I an example Or am I doing what everyone else has been doing, which hasn't been working, and it's filling up our landfills and filling up our oceans and like destroying and contaminating our waterways, you know? And
Mhm.
I think hair removal is one of those areas that like it's not good for anybody, you know? Like most waxes that we use, conventional waxing, are rosins and polymers, which are basically plastic, so they don't biodegrade. And then you have all of this mess, and then the can and the plastic, and it's garbage, lots of like accumulation of garbage. You've got the hair removal creams that are not healthy for you, and they're not healthy for our waterways when they wash down the drain. And then, you know, you've got razors, which you, if you're shaving, you're going through razors like at least one a month. And those are filling up the landfills because those aren't recyclable. So, really, like, what are our options? And I really wanted to be conscious, partly because I was, you know, I naturally grew up that way, but partly because I recognize that as an entrepreneur, I have a responsibility to my customers and the planet and the environment. It's just, it's just table stakes now, I think. I think we
Mhm.
can't ignore the climate issue any
Absolutely
longer.
not.
So every
Abs-
choice that we made, I mean, you know, we were the first hair removal company to put a product in glass. So all of our containers are glass or paper. We try to make it so that it's like, you know, either post consumer for our packaging or like as much recyclability as possible universally, right? And
Mhm.
the thing that people don't recognize about glass, or it's not talked about, a lot of people will say, well, why aren't you using plastic? I mean, there's plastics that are recyclable, but those recyclable plastics only get recycled once. They can't be recycled twice. Whereas glass is infinitely recyclable. You
Mhm.
can break it and you know, reharness it and reproduce glass with the same material over and over again. So
Yeah, that's interesting because when you mentioned glass, I thought to myself, but that's you don't break down that, but when perspective is everything, because the fact that you can reuse it so many times, it means that you don't have to create more glass and more glass. You have less of that in the environment. So powerful. Now, I'm going to take a little break right here. I'm just going to mention to my peak performance community that there is a podcast workshop coming up, and it is for only 249 US dollars on March 11. And so if you want to sign up, you can go to bit.ly, that's bit.ly /podcast workshop 2023 and sign up. I just put it in the chat for those who are online with me now. But again, let me repeat, and it will be in the show notes as well, bit.ly /podcast workshop 2023. So by all means, you want to be the podcast boss, come on over. Let me teach you a thing or two. All right. So Salome, you have been talking about the environmental aspects and the positive aspects of your business. Now we want to get a little more businessy, as it were. And we're going to be looking at the ins and outs of a new product, developing a product. And pretty much our conversation can segue into, thus far, can segue into what I want to ask you first about this aspect of new product development. And it's the ideation phase, right? So you talked about, yes, it's a challenge you were having. So it was your pain point, which became a necessity. So necessity is the mother of invention, they say. But let's talk about just honing on it a little more and talk about the ideation phase of your new product.
absolutely. I just want to start this by saying that just for the record, up until now, I haven't really talked about this facet of my business publicly. And I'm so happy to do it with you, Henika, because, you know, I think when you go down this journey of entrepreneurism, um, you recognize that it's difficult. And the brave men and women who want to tread this path, like you, like I want to make it easier for them. to do this. So by if sharing this information is going to be helpful, I'm so happy to do it.
Absolutely. And I'm glad it's like an exclusive, yeah, on the Entrepreneurial You.
Yes, definitely an
Let's do
exclusive
it.
here.
Let's do it.
So in terms of ideation, one I experienced sugar wax, and then which was the first time was in Australia, and my skin just had this beautiful glow afterwards. It was so soft. I couldn't stop touching it. And then a few months later, we were in France, and France has a bit of a sugaring culture because it's
Mm-hmm.
actually sugaring is very common in parts of North Africa. And so that through migration of people, this technique has sort of proliferated throughout the southern part of France. And that's when I started learning about it. And my first idea was, oh my gosh, like people are gonna love this. So we should set up like sugar bars. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like there's wax bars and you have
Yeah.
sugar bars and you get sugared instead of wax. And then obviously the whole slew of like benefits and why it would do
Mm-hmm.
great. But as I started to do my market research, I saw that, oh, like sugaring services are actually like starting to pop up in very urban centers like
Mm-hmm.
New York, LA, Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, like all of the like urban cores, it was already happening. So I'm like, okay, so this isn't really new. How else can I make this product and this technique accessible for people? And that's when I was like, okay, well, maybe we should create a line, a product that they could use. And at first, it was all about the sugar wax because that's the star, right? That's the thing that does it. But as I did research, I learned things like, even going through like waxing, like people who use waxing products and reading reviews on wax products on Amazon, right? Not a hard thing to do. I started to see patterns of pain points, right? Or like as we started experimenting with like different formulas, I was new to sugaring. I hadn't done it before, so I had that you know new user experience. And I'm like, okay, well, this is happening, why is this happening? And like sometimes the sugar would just roll off my skin and it wouldn't even stick, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how is this happening? And then learning that the sugar is the sugar because it's sugar, it's water soluble. So when the skin starts to perspire, or when you start to remove hair from the follicle, the skin's natural reaction is to start perspiring, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of going through the trial and error and market research and user research, and coming from like a user experience background myself, I really wanted to like follow that methodology to make sure that what we deliver is easy and simple. Another pain point that I came across was people would like complain about breaking out after waxing or after hair removal. And as we did the research, we found that it's because, if you don't cleanse the skin and you're removing hair from the follicle, like the pore is staying open for a period up to 48 hours. So if the pore is open and your skin is not clean, then you're going to have a breakout or a pimple or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of going through this, well, I'm not bringing just another hair removal product to the market. I need to make something that is substantially, by leaps better than what's already existing, right?
Right. You
And I
said,
think,
let me just cut you right there because
yeah,
you said something and I wanted to jump in a very long time, Just
yeah, I
and
know.
it's it's all right. And it's just the marketing aspect because you mentioned the fact that guess what? It wasn't new, but you had to do the research to make sure that you make it better, that you improve upon. And that is what I think is very poignant because a lot of entrepreneurs, they want to bring more of the same. And it's not going to, it's a dime a dozen. It's not going to help anybody. It's not, you're not doing anything differently. You don't have a competitive edge. And that I think is key. And we should not miss that point, that you found your competitive edge. You created a product that was, it wasn't a new product, but you enhanced it. And so make it your own. And you have your niche in the market.
Absolutely. And, sometimes I take it for granted that not every entrepreneur has like a background in marketing like I do. So for me, like doing market research, like I've done it 1,000 times. I've taught it in college. Like it's not new. But like I think that, there's some really great books out there that talk about like business and entrepreneurism, and having that process. So I think like if I were to boil down some of my learnings into really simple like advice that I would give to someone who wants to embark on an entrepreneurial journey, it would be that what you said, which is creating something that's already been done, is not the key to success, right? I mean, maybe you'll have some other advantage, and that's very circumstantial. But your best chance of like having a breakthrough product is by having and creating a breakthrough product. It has to be a lot better. And the only way you're going to make it better is by finding out what hasn't worked in the past. So
Mhm.
doing the research, and you don't need access to like Forrester Research Institutes, like $1,600 like reports. You need to get to know your category.
Mhm.
Whenever I hire someone new, and they might have experience in beauty, one of the first things that I want them to do is get to know the industry. Because once you know the environment that you're operating in, then you know what language to use, what not to say, what your customers and your audience want from you and need from you. And then the picture starts to become really clear. Because, like, let's be honest, when you start on, like, when you embark on an entrepreneurial journey, you're not necessarily fully equipped and you don't have all the tools. And if you do, you've waited too long.
Yeah.
So be bold, be brave, step into it without all the tools, but you have to be prepared to be constantly learning.
Right. And so with that constant learning, I want to touch, before we're out of time, I want to touch on prototyping, right? Getting that first, um, I would say minimum viable product that you say, okay. Oh, by the way, did you wait until it was perfect before you put something out? Or did you come up, say to yourself, you know what, I'm going to work with a minimum viable product and put this out and then make improvement as I go along? What was it like for you, Salome?
I think for us and what we wanted to do, a lot of the like our competitive advantage and our mission and our purpose was very much tied to creating a product that's
Mhm.
easy to use. So, in some sense, we did have to get it perfect because
Mhm.
every customer from like customer number one had the potential to become what we now have as subscribers, right?
Mhm.
So I think it depends. I totally am a huge believer in the minimum viable product path, especially when you're creating products that are, like if you're building a house, right? Like it's not a small project. Um and you probably want to make a model or a rendering or a drawing or something that gives you like that's your minimum viable product so you could test the idea with it. We didn't really have the luxury of doing that because we needed to come out of the gate with not just a product that works really, really well consistently and off the bat, but like because a lot of our work was creating the education around it. Like when you tell people you're going to wax, but the wax is reusable and you don't need strips and you don't need spatulas and you don't need a warmer, they're like, what the
Say
hell does
what?
that
Say
mean?
what?
Totally. So I think for as advice, like it depends on the business. Like if
Hmm.
you're building software, you want to have a clickable prototype.
Right. Yes.
But when you're creating a new category in, an existing space like hair removal, you need to come out of the gate with a banging product. And I think that's really important with beauty, with anything that's tangible, like with fashion, with beauty. You can't just come up with a half-baked concept and expect it to take off, because in those categories of like fashion and beauty, people don't really there's not a lot of loyalty and there's a lot of options.
Hmm. So, so you've said something very, very interesting. So it depends on the product, right? Because again, what I think about, as you said that, Salome, is the fact that first impression lasts, right? And when it comes on to beauty, as you say, there is no loyalty really. So you gotta make sure on that first hit, that first customer that you hit, then they become raving fans eventually, right?
Yes.
So that's important. So your prototype, and I want to spend one more minute on prototyping because I think it's so important. A lot of people have ideas and they just feel like, oh my gosh, I can't move with it. So you thought about this product, you're going to be putting it out. How long between the ideation stage and you actually getting it market ready? What was that prototyping period like for you?
That's an important question to ask, because I think in our minds we think like, as if we have an idea, the second we take action, we're like, oh, it's gonna be a reality like next week, right?
Yes.
So thank you for asking that. So again, like in the category of beauty, it's pretty standardized, but it's only these like time frames in the beauty category, not anywhere else. So for me, what it looked like was, I had this idea. I knew what I wanted it to look and feel like and do for me, right? And the prototyping really started in my kitchen, playing around with like different versions of, processes and recipes that I had, learned about through one method or another. And then that was like from idea to like taking action with all the research in between. It was probably about 6 months, realistically. And then once I started doing the testing and prototyping and I started to get close, and I was like, okay, this is the right consistency, this is the right treatment, then I had to partner with a lab, because a lot of ingredients that we use in beauty, and sugar is actually not a beauty ingredient, but it is consistent in the sense that like a lot of these ingredients are volatile.
Hmm.
So when you make small batch versus mass production, there's a change that happens that you need to be prepared for, and there's a science. So once I got it to a stage that I was happy with, then I partnered with a lab. And when you're testing beauty products, every iteration takes about like 3 to 4 months, to just like, once you've iterated, to just wait and then go through the process of like, shelf life, stability, what happens to the product when it's exposed to light, what happens if it's exposed to heat, and like being able to solve those problems. And if you get it wrong, like if you have like, something that doesn't work in that batch, you have to do that all over again. And that's another 3 or 4 months. So from start to finish, from the time that we had a product and a process that we're like, okay, this is market ready, it was about a year and a half.
Well, not bad. So you would have from ideation to prototyping, the market research, and sourcing of the raw material, well, and the labs and everything to partner with to be in a commercial product takes you a year and a half. That's pretty good. And it's obviously you took action. You were inspired to take the action. Because with all of those waiting time in between, it would have meant that you kept going along the way. And I'm going to ask you, Salome, to just share with us your final thoughts as it relates to new product development, and somebody who's thinking about it, let's keep it in the beauty industry. For somebody who's thinking about developing a new product, give them some, a final piece of advice to run with.
Absolutely. So I think it's a really exciting time to be in the beauty industry because a lot of independent beauty brands like ours and so many others are coming into the industry and changing the standards that have not served our health or the planet for so long. So if you have an idea and you want to bring it to the market, I highly encourage you to take action. There's a lot of room for improvement. That means there's a lot of opportunity. But I have to say, you got to go in with eyes kind of wide
Wide
open. It's
open,
also, yeah,
not eyes wide shut like the movie.
no, not like the movie, because it is a highly competitive space.
Mhm.
And it demands things that as a small business entrepreneur, like you might not be ready for. So if you are wanting to do something in beauty, start really small. Like create something that like I want to create this for like my sisters, my like community, for my town, for like this small section of the world that really needs this, right? Because what happens is when you're focused and intentional, it actually gives you a lot of clarity about, your mission and your purpose, and a lot of motivation. It doesn't get too overwhelming. So, my advice is start small and then you'll grow, and always go into it with a lot of heart. There's going to be a lot of hard days, and you really need to believe in your product, even if you don't believe in yourself. You need to believe in your mission, even if you don't believe that, like, you're in your own success that's going to come. So go into it with a lot of heart. It's hard.
Yeah. Go into it with a lot of heart. That is a nice way to end. But first, let's hear how they may contact you, or Peak Performance community may contact you.
Absolutely. So I'm on LinkedIn and I love connecting with other professionals on LinkedIn, Salome Sallelhy. And, if you're an entrepreneur and you have questions about, where to get started, or how like, if you're coming across a problem and if I can answer it for you, I'm happy to. So don't hesitate to reach out. Sugar Wax is also on Instagram. We love sharing educational content. So it's sugar_wax. That's the handle. And, if you like what you're hearing and if you're curious about the space, give us a follow. We love expanding our community to every corner of the world. We're shipping to Australia, Canada, Europe, all over the place. And we love the international community that we're building. We'd love you to be a part of it.
Awesome. I just followed you, sent you a request on LinkedIn, followed you on Instagram, and that's beautiful. So thank you so much. Alicia says, great session. We'll definitely follow Alicia. We'll definitely follow um, Salome. Thank you so much. So I have been talking with Salome Sallelhy, and she has been just amazing. She's just a when if you're viewing her live, you see the warmth on her face, and it comes through. Her heart comes through. So we are so grateful that you took the time to be with us, Salome.
Thank you for having me, Hanika. It's been such a pleasure. And I can't wait till I'm in Jamaica again. Can't wait.
Yes, and please, when you do come to Jamaica, hit me up, okay? I'm here.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Awesome sauce. And thank you for tuning into this episode with Salome Sallelhy. What's the standout moment for you, my people, my people, my people, in the words of Empress Golding? Well, for me, it's just being whatever you're doing to go in it with heart. But it's interesting to know that even as entrepreneurs, we talk about that minimum viable product, but it's not a one size fits all, because here it is, Salome is telling us about the difference that happens in the beauty industry. So you got to have something perfect from the get go, because you only get a first chance to make a first impression. And once you do that, you can, with that impression, you can make or break your customer, that relationship. You can either have them for life or just have them for that one moment and you never have them again. But the point is, you want them to be your raving fan. So if it is that you are thinking about creating a product, developing a product for the beauty industry, think on these things. Listen back to this episode and please follow Salome on social media as well as Sugar Walks. Really lovely conversation, and I'm happy to have shared it with you. Kindly send us your feedback at henikawatkisporter@gmail.com or on social media at henikawatkisporter. And remember, I've always been asking you to follow this podcast on your favorite podcast app, or you may connect with me for all things podcasting. Just go to henikawatkisporter.com, look at the podcast tab, look at the blogs, look at all the various resources that are there just to enrich your life. And you know what I want you to encourage you to do? Usually, when I'm about to interview a guest, I normally put it up on my social media. I normally put it on Instagram stories or my WhatsApp stories or my um, or the group, the Entrepreneurial You group. And so you'll get a chance to see the next topic that's coming up. And if you have a question for that guest, then please send it to me ahead of time so that I can send it to the guest or even ask when I'm having that conversation with them live. So yeah, that's a new thing I'm doing. Yeah, I keep doing new things with this show over the last couple of weeks. Interesting. All right, so it's time for me to skedaddle out of here. So I end, as usual, with according to the scriptures. And today's scripture is from Psalm 7, verse 17. I will give thanks to the Lord because of his righteousness. I will sing the praises of the name of the Lord Most High. What good?